On this video, I'm going to review the facts behind the anonymous New York Times article last week. They start by saying it's a rare step for them to publish an anonymous op-ed article. That's a total fabrication. An anonymous op-ed article is no different, absolutely no different than an editorial that quotes anonymous sources. And they do that routinely. They can't stop from doing it. They do it all the time. In fact, they very rarely mention the source. The Media Research Center found that 87% of the New York Times articles about Trump is negative, with most of the information attributed to anonymous sources. Watching their reporting for 2 years, I feel they've gone from being a well-respected, objective news source to writing news, true or not, verified or not, to influence opinions. They do this because of the political favors they've gotten from the Democratic Party and total economic reasons for their own greedy benefit. Here's an example. When the Times interprets events about Trump a totally biased way, it becomes breaking news, and a summary of it is presented in all the mainstream media. That causes consumers to go online, read the full story. Now here's the deceit, big deceit. After the consumer clicks on several New York Times articles, they're taken to a paid barrier page where they'll have to enter their credit card information and pay just $1 to continue reading. And then after 4 weeks, that $1 trial subscription is automatically converted to a $195 a year subscription. And since many consumers don't check their credit statement in detail, they don't know this happened. Now, the Times thinks they have the right to do that because they hide those terms in their terms of agreement, which again, most people don't read. Through this deceit, now listen to this, the New York Times earned revenue from these digital subscriptions of $570 million in 2017. And it saved the newspaper from failing. Another reason for them favoring the Democratic Party is that Carlos Slim, who's the second largest shareholder of the New York Times, he was selected without true competitive bidding by the Obama administration to provide free phones to low-income consumers. Now listen to this. The total phone cost is totally paid by the federal government, and by the time Obama left office, Slim's company had $7 billion of revenue from this program. Do you think he had a reason to have the New York Times favor the Democratic Party? As a result, he was also a major financial backer of Obama and contributed more than $20 million to the Clinton Foundation, and who knows how much more. Now let's go to the article. Since the writer's undisclosed, he or she could have been an Obama holdover, or a friend of one of the FBI leaders that got fired, or being investigated like James Comey, or Andrew McCabe, or Peter Strzok, or Lisa Page, or the past Department of Justice head Loretta Lynch, or a friend of Hillary Clinton. Remember, Trump said he's going to clean the swamp, and that's what he's doing. And all the friends of the swamp are out to get him. The writer then claims that the American people are bitterly divided. And he says it's because of Trump's leadership. Total BS. The truth is that divide existed well before Trump. And it's the Democratic Party who for more than a decade followed a political agenda that says to get elected, use lies and misrepresentation to vilify opponents and create class warfare and hatred. They follow an agenda that says if you tell a lie enough times from enough sources, people will believe it. It's a horrible, horrible thing. An example of spreading hatred was recently seen with Maxine Waters, a 28-year term Democratic congresswoman, who publicly said if you see anybody from the Trump cabinet, you should confront them and tell them they're not welcome anywhere they go, at any time. Now what's troubling is it's the Democratic Party supports her. I think that's horrible, absolutely horrible. And that same spreading of hatred is talked about continually by the Democratic leaders. And it's given wide coverage by their biased media cronies without condemning it. Now listen, Keith Ellison, the deputy chair of the Democratic National Committee, sent a tweet endorsing a book promoting Antifa. who you can see at demonstrations. They cover their faces with black masks, they use their fists, they throw objects, they destroy property, they push through police barricades, and who repeatedly say that they're going to do whatever is necessary to keep Trump from enacting his agenda. Now, they're financially backed by George Soros, who's one of the main backers of the Democratic Party, a good friend of the Clintons, and other major Democratic donors. I saw an offering that offered to pay protesters $1,500 a week to be violent and cause anyone in the Republican administration to run into safe places out of fear. And the Democratic Party supports this group. Why doesn't the media condemn the Democratic Party's support? Because they're getting political favors not to. That's why. The answer is that they support the Democratic Party agenda and their spread of hatred so that the Democratic Party can get control of our government. Now, I hope, as I expose the true facts in future videos, we'll all wake up to the danger of their behavior. I have proof in my book how the Democratic Party uses other paid protesters to create a climate of chaos. When you see these people carrying signs and going against Trump at every chance they can or his policy, they're normally paid protesters, and they're covered by TV coverage. This was evident at the Kavanaugh Supreme Court confirmation hearings. And I published a 3-minute video on my video channel showing the Democrats paying off a protester after they left the hearing. Paying him off. The op-ed writer then says, many of Trump's senior officials are working to frustrate his agenda. Now, I don't know what he meant by many. Is that 2 people? Is that 3 people? Just an assumption? Or it may only be him. The New York Times did nothing to support any of these claims. Now, if it is really many, and they're doing it secretly, then the New York Times should disclose who it is, because that activity would be called a coup d'etat, and it's illegal. And things like that have caused countries to topple. If they're not happy with the regime, they should leave, but not secretly try to topple it. The writer says, although Trump was elected as a Republican, he shows little affinity for conservative ideals. That is so absurd. A large number of Democratic politicians publicly acknowledge they favor socialism. They've kept it hidden for 10 years. Now they're publicly admitting it. And it's the socialists are the ones that are against free markets. If you go to my website, you can request a free document I prepared that exposes the truth about socialism and the dangers versus capitalism. Our teachers aren't even teaching socialism properly or democracy properly in the schools. He said Trump called the press the enemy of the people. When are the lies going to stop? Trump didn't say the press is the enemy of the people. He said the fake news is the enemy of the people. And that's true. The fake news is the enemy of the people, because every country taken over by corrupt politicians used fake news or controlled media reporting to initially win the public vote. And that's why I began to expose the lies and harmful bias reporting in the press. And I will continue to do that as I recover it. We need objective and truthful and both sides of arguments in order to make informed electoral decisions. The writer said Trump was anti-trade. Wow. This guy knows nothing or is just making up stories about everything. Maybe he thinks tariffs are anti-trade, and that's probably what he thinks, because that's what the media supports. But what that person doesn't understand is that the U.S. trade deficit was over $500 billion in 2016. And unfair trade practices was actually causing us to lose our steel and aluminum production capability, which would be disastrous for our national defense, since it takes steel and aluminum to build planes and ships and tanks, etc. So Trump placed a 25% tariff on steel and 10% on aluminum. He also wants energy, so he imposed a 30% tariff on solar panels. The solar panel part was done because China was subsidizing its own solar production to take over the industry and flooding the market with ultra-cheap panels. And that caused a dozen of U.S. solar panel manufacturers to close. But now with Trump's tariff, the steel manufacturing facilities are reopening, they're expanding, the solar panel manufacturers are reopening, And that's more important for our future. So it's not Trump that's anti-trade. It's the Democrat Party that is ruining our trade with their stupid policies. The writer says Trump is anti-democratic, but it's the Democratic politicians who have become anti-democratic. They no longer vote for laws that people who elected them want. They vote as a group. Either yes if the Democratic Party wants it, or no if the Republicans proposed it. They always vote yes for what their backers want and no about what their backers don't want. Whereas Trump is not like other politicians. He is working very hard to deliver on the platform he promised voters to get elected. And that's probably why the political establishment opposes him. Now, the writer did say there are bright spots like effective deregulation, historic tax reform, a more robust military. He had no choice but to say that because that's been promoted, especially by the conservative media. But he intentionally left out all of Trump's other accomplishments, like higher economic growth rates, lowest unemployment rates in history, NATO countries increasing their defense spending so America can reduce its defense cost, a better relationship with North Korea, increased immigration security, almost defeat of ISIS, and many more accomplishments that have been made in the last 2 years, more than any other president has made in the first 2 years in office, or sometimes in 4 years in office. The writer admits that many of Trump's policies have made America safer and more prosperous. Then he goes on to say that the president acts in a manner that's detrimental to the health of our republic. I don't understand. How can Trump be making the country safer and more prosperous and be detrimental? It's the Democratic Party and the liberal biased media that creates the detrimental hatred, not Trump. He just responds to their attacks. And responding is justified. Who wouldn't? The writer says Trump shows a preference for Russia's leader Vladimir Putin and North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un. That's so wrong. So much lack of knowledge and understanding. Trump originally took a strong stance against North Korea because they tested 23 missiles in 2017 and possibly a long-range missile that could reach America. And they detonated an H-bomb that's much stronger than Hiroshima. The North Koreans felt comfortable doing this for the last 10 years or more because past administrations didn't scare them. Obama, when leaving office, told Trump that North Korea would be the most dangerous foe, and he probably couldn't stop them. So Trump took a strong stance against North Korea to get them to stop their aggression. He believed that power comes from strength. But the Democratic Party and liberal media reported that Trump was too tough on North Korea. And then when Trump's actions got a meeting arranged with the North Korean leader, the media switched and said he was too soft. Why? He gave nothing for that meeting other than meeting. Trump's actions in this area caused North Korea to agree to release 3 American prisoners. Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Democratic House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi attacked Trump by saying the hostages were freed as bargaining chips. They never acknowledged that he gave him nothing to do that, other than when Obama gave $1 billion or more for release of hostages from Iran. Trump gave nothing, other than agreed to meet with them. But that didn't matter to them. I wonder how they'd feel if it was their children being released. Would they still have objected? North Korea, as a result of the meeting, agreed to stop its missile testing and nuclear bomb detonations, and has been removing its anti-propaganda posters from around North Korea. And they're doing this to begin promoting a better relationship with the U.S. than the hostile relationship that existed for the last umpteen years. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi now say that the agreement was made in haste. Again, anything Trump does, they find fault with, and they're backed by what I now call not fake news. I call them the corrupt media. And I will be proving that in my future videos and uncovering what they do as they do it. It's hard for me to watch the news sometimes without getting upset about the biasness and not reporting on good things and only reporting bad things and interpreting everything bad whenever they can. The writer goes on and says there are whispers within the cabinet of invoking the 25th Amendment to impeach Trump. if he's whispering with Democrats, he's probably right. That's definitely on the Democratic Party's wish list. But it's not the Republicans' wish list. Frankly, the Democrats are afraid of Trump's achievements and that he can't be bribed, and they will do anything or say anything to try and stop him from succeeding. That shows they don't really care about America, but only care about their personal financial gains. And you can't believe the corruption I found that I'll be exposing. The writer says, I quote, "There's literally no telling whether Trump might change his mind from 1 minute to the next. This shows the writer's lack of understanding, because successful people tell their ideas to many people, and they learn from what those other people say about the idea. It's called thinking out loud. It's a constant process of sharing ideas, changing when new things are learned, and then acting. That's what successful people do. Of course, some of the people consulted may not agree with the final decision. There will always be disagreement, but that's helpful, especially on complicated issues. But that's why we elected a president to make the final decision, and I trust Trump's decision-making ability. Since he's built a large empire, won the presidency with no prior political experience, had a #1 rated TV show with no TV experience, he succeeded at a lot of things despite a lot of opposition, and has accomplished more in his first 2 years, like I said before, than any other president in recent history. Now, I want to close with one last important thing. We all must vote Republican in the 2018 November midterm. If the Democrats get majority of the House, they're going to try and impeach Trump, and that would be a disaster. If you have something to say about this video, you can communicate with me on my Twitter account at Alan Shinered, one word, Alan Shinered, or read more about my book on redwaveimperative.com, or follow me here on YouTube. We must act together and keep a disaster from happening in America.